Hello and welcome to another Let's Study video of the series on programming principles and practice using C++, 3rd edition. We left off last video on completing the review section of Chapter 1, Hello World, and now we move on to the terms sections section of Chapter 1, in which case I have created a list of answers or definitions to these terms. So this is a working glossary so far of only these terms that were listed in Chapter 1, but of course we've already have experienced more than these terms, and this list is obviously incomplete, but it is complete for the terms that are listed here in Chapter 1. So I'm going to read off what I believe to be the terms short definition. This is a revision 0. You'll find the file in the Google Drive in the comments below. A PDF of what you see here, and I'll just quickly read off on this and move on to, bigger and greater things. So, to start off, we have the term, the double forward slash. I think this is more of a token, but it is, to me, a line comment indicator, which indicates that all text after this term or token on the same line is ignored by the compiler, such that you can use this to create comments within your source code which don't affect the compilation of your source code. Next we have function, which I would define as a small program with a defined output type with input, if any, and a single definition. We have the function output, which is an either displayed or returned value or values, usually representing some calculation or result from performing some task. We have a compiler term, which I believe defines a program which converts source code, human readable, into object code, machine readable, files to be later linked into a program. We have the term error, which I define as an unintended behavior within a program. We have linker, which is, to me, a program which links together object code into an executable file or program. I believe a linker can also be used to create a dynamic link library, but we haven't seen that in the book yet, so I'll leave this definition as is. Then we have command line, which is a character mode, meaning text only, program or terminal on a computer used primarily to perform small tasks and run other programs. For example, we have command line and Windows PowerShell on Windows, and we have the terminal on Linux. We have executable, which I define as a fully built file or program which can be run by at least the command line. We have object code, which I define as compiled source code. It is machine readable. It is a binary file, and it is ready to be linked by a linker into a program. We have comment. I believe a comment is defined as a group of text, either a line or block, which is ignored by the compiler. We have import, which I define as a keyword which signifies to the compiler to import some module into a source file to make available the module's exported functions and values. Now, I left out macros because I'm wondering if you can export macros from a module. Since I don't know if we can or cannot, I'll leave that out. And then we have library, which I believe to be defined as a grouping of functions, values, and macros within a file centered around some functionality. For example, the IOStream library for input and output. We have a module, which is a precompiled grouping of functions, values, and macros to be imported for use. So I said I would leave out macros, but then I added it in here. I will remove it. I say functions and values to be imported for use by a program. Source file. We have the term bug, which I believe to be an unintended behavior in code. And a program. We have main, which is the entry point function of any C++ program. Execution. Program execution begins here. We have the term C++, which took me a little bit to write, but I believe that this is a good definition. It is a hybrid procedural and object-oriented programming language centered around low-level machine near access to machine hardware and low-level machine near access to hardware. Resources along with zero overhead abstraction mechanisms allowing for higher level programming. It is also a superset of the C programming language. We have the term IDE, which is either an interactive development environment or an integrated development environment, within which a user can create, edit, compile, link, and run, and also debug programs. We have the term source code, which I believe to be defined best as a text-based file containing human-readable and hopefully compilable, which is meaning language-defined, text. We have a statement term, which I believe is defined best by an action described in source code for a program to follow, usually terminated with the semicolon in C++. I'll leave out in C++ since this whole endeavor is around C++ anyways. We have the hashtag include term, which I believe is defined by a preprocessor command to include the contents from another source file within the source file where the hashtag include is. We have the term debugging, which I believe is the process of testing and fixing a program of bugs. So ridding of bugs in programming. We then have the double left angle bracket, which is the output operator used by various functions. For example, the various functions, objects, For example, the std cout object to output text to the screen. Then we have a header file, which I believe is best defined as a source file where functions and values are declared and not necessarily defined. We then have a program term, which I believe is defined by an explicitly stated list of actions to be completed in an orderly fashion to accomplish some task. We then have the term compile time, which I believe is defined by occurring during compilation. For example, compile time errors occur during compiling. We then have cout, which is an object used to output text to the screen. I will say, I'll describe it more, a C++ object from the IOStream library /module used to output text to the screen. Finally, we have the term std, which is the standard library, a grouping of header files included with any ISO C++ compiler containing useful function values and macros. Okay. That concludes the terms section of Chapter 1, Hello World. Moving on, the next video will cover the exercises, in which case we will be completing them, and then we will be able to quickly cover the PostScript section and move on to Chapter 2 on objects, types, and values. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos on this Let's Study series of programming principles and practice using C++ 3rd edition. Thank you.